THQ was a little weird about its PC ports of console games. Avatar: The Last Airbender on PC is a great example of that. For some reason, THQ thought that PC games needed to be their own thing, and either largely use mouse controls or only use mouse controls. Avatar: The Last Airbender falls into the latter camp, with it being impossible to use the keys for anything, even when it would be immensely beneficial, such as switching your skills. Avatar: The Last Airbender is mostly a beat-em-up where you click on enemies using your various skills on them until they fall over. There's an emphasis on hit-and-run tactics where you shoot a few air blasts, then run away to evade and shoot a few air blasts again. This is definitely intentional, as the game brings up this strategy many times. There are a few situations where Sokka and Katara will fight alongside you, and they do deal some damage, but not enough to be worthwhile. You're going to be killing pretty much everyone yourself. Now, if you think defeating a ton of bad guys isn't particularly accurate to Aang's character at the point in the show where this takes place, which is the first season, then don't worry, because apparently the developers agreed with you. Because like many beat-em-ups I play, it's possible to simply run past the enemies in any of these beat-em-up sections. I do not think this is intentional, but intentional or not, it fits much better with Aang's character than shooting everyone with air blasts until they fall over. But even when you're forced to do the beat-em-up segments, they aren't particularly difficult. Sure, you can lose quite easily, especially against the larger enemies, but that doesn't matter because you respawn with all the enemies still dead that you already killed, so there's no penalty. This even applies to the boss battles, where the bosses still have their health bar lowered to where you lowered it before you died. So you can just kind of walk into danger, mash the attack button, and there's no consequence for it. I've never heard of a game where, you're fighting a boss battle and you deal damage to the boss, but after you die, the boss just keeps the damage you dealt to him. Like, his health bar doesn't regenerate when you die and respawn. What a weird game. There's no nuance to the combat mechanics either. If you click on an enemy and use an attack, it's going to hit no matter what, regardless of what skill you're using. There's no status effects or special attributes the attacks have. It doesn't really feel like airbending so much as just shooting something at someone until they go down. And although the boss battles had the potential to be interesting and probably the best part of the game, with their back and forth puzzle-like nature, which reminds me a little bit of a really simplistic Punch-Out, the fact remains that you can just tank them with no consequences for the reasons mentioned earlier. I'm certain I've played much worse games than this. This game technically functions, and it roughly follows the story of the first season. They got the voice actors from the official series, and it's weird hearing Aang's voice actors say things like, left click to use my air blast ability. But I can't find anything remarkable about this game in any capacity, aside from the fact that the gameplay is very similar to Diablo, and yet there's no RPG mechanics in sight. I guess that's kinda strange. The game also breaks up the beat-em-up combat with mini-games, and the mini-games are all really surface level and uninteresting, in addition to being done with the mouse, and only the mouse. So, at its core, Avatar: The Last Airbender on PC is a very, very boring beat-em-up with almost nothing interesting about it whatsoever. You can run past most of the enemies, and even when you can't, the game is so easy as to be insulting. I feel kinda bad for anyone that saw the console version and wanted to play that and mistakenly picked up the PC version instead. It's not often I say this, but I can't think of anything artistically or mechanically worthwhile in Avatar: The Last Airbender on PC. Absolutely nothing.